Gentlemen and ladies who are listening in, let's get real for a moment. In a world where everyone's talking about what men should do to impress women, how to text, what to wear, what to say, very few people talk about what men should never do. Because sometimes it's not the big gestures that define your character. It's the boundaries you refuse to cross, the respect you choose to show, and the mistakes you learn not to make. Today, I'm not here to lecture you. I'm here to challenge you to become men of value, not just charm, men of integrity, not just intention. So, let's dive in. Here are 8 things men should never do with women, if you truly want to be respected, admired, and unforgettable. Respecting a woman's boundaries is one of the clearest reflections of a man's maturity, emotional intelligence, and integrity. Boundaries are not barriers designed to keep people away. They are healthy limits that define how someone wishes to be treated. They exist in every relationship, romantic, professional, or friendly, and ignoring them doesn't make someone bold or dominant. It reveals immaturity and insecurity. When a man disregards a woman's boundaries, whether emotional, physical, or mental, he doesn't show strength, he shows weakness. Respecting boundaries, on the other hand, builds trust, comfort, and a genuine connection that no amount of charm or confidence can replace. Emotional boundaries are often the most delicate, and yet they are the ones men overlook most frequently. They include things like respecting her need for space, understanding her emotions without trying to fix them, and avoiding manipulation or guilt, tripping to get your way. Too many men confuse emotional availability with control, thinking that if they can just influence her feelings, they can maintain power in the relationship. But that's not strength, it's insecurity wearing confidence as a mask. A strong man allows a woman to feel safe expressing herself without fear of being judged or ridiculed. He listens more than he talks, and when she opens up, he doesn't weaponize her vulnerability later in arguments. Emotional safety means being a man who can be trusted with her truth, her fears, and her dreams. Respecting emotional boundaries also means accepting that she's not obligated to share everything with you immediately. Some men take it personally when a woman is guarded, assuming she doesn't care enough or isn't serious. In reality, emotional boundaries are built from past experiences, sometimes from pain or betrayal. A mature man doesn't rush her healing. He gives her time and consistency until she feels secure enough to open up. He understands that closeness cannot be forced, it must be earned. When you honor her emotional pace, you show her that her comfort matters more than your ego. Physical boundaries are equally crucial, and respecting them is a non-negotiable sign of character. Physical respect doesn't only mean avoiding unwanted touch, it also includes reading cues, asking for consent, and understanding that her body belongs solely to her. It means never assuming closeness is permission, never thinking affection equals access, and never using pressure, guilt, or alcohol to blur the lines. True strength lies in self-control. The kind of man who can respect a woman's physical boundaries, even when emotions are high, is the kind of man who earns deep trust. There's also a subtle aspect to physical respect that goes beyond romantic relationships. It's about being aware of personal space, tone, and presence. Some men unintentionally make women uncomfortable by standing too close, using overly familiar gestures, or invading personal space in casual settings. A respectful man observes body language. He notices when she steps back, looks uneasy, or withdraws. Instead of pushing forward, he steps back. He doesn't make her discomfort about his pride. Physical awareness communicates a deep level of emotional maturity, because it shows he prioritizes her comfort over his desires. Disrespecting physical boundaries can also appear in relationships when men assume control over how a woman dresses, moves, or expresses herself. No man has the right to dictate what a woman wears or how she presents herself to the world. When a man feels entitled to comment on or control a woman's choices under the disguise of protecting her, he crosses a boundary. A healthy relationship allows each person to express individuality freely. When a man respects a woman's autonomy over her own body and choices, he demonstrates not only respect but also confidence in himself. Mental boundaries, though less visible, are equally vital. They involve respecting her opinions, beliefs, goals, and values. Too often, men feel the need to assert dominance through conversation, interrupting, dismissing her ideas, or making her feel intellectually inferior. This behavior stems from insecurity, not intelligence. A confident man doesn't feel threatened by a strong-minded woman, he admires her for it. Respecting mental boundaries means understanding that she's allowed to think differently without being wrong. It means listening with the intent to understand, not to argue or win. When a man respects a woman's mental boundaries, he empowers her to think, dream, and decide for herself. He doesn't talk over her, correct her unnecessarily, or make jokes that undermine her intelligence. He appreciates her perspective, even when it challenges his own. That kind of mutual respect builds not just attraction, but partnership. A relationship should never be a battle for intellectual superiority. It should be a collaboration of minds that inspire growth in each other. When men belittle or silence women to protect their egos, they destroy the foundation of equality that every healthy connection requires. Respecting mental boundaries also extends to privacy. Just because you're close to someone doesn't mean you have the right to every detail of their thoughts, messages, or past. Trust is not built by interrogation, it's built by understanding. Constantly checking her phone, demanding explanations for every action, or trying to control her interactions are all signs of insecurity disguised as care. True respect allows freedom, and freedom nurtures loyalty. A woman who feels trusted and respected has no reason to hide or withdraw. There's another dimension to respecting boundaries, verbal boundaries. The words you use can either create safety or destroy it. Sarcasm, criticism, or comments that target her insecurities are all ways men unconsciously cross lines. Joking about sensitive topics, bringing up her past mistakes during arguments, or using emotionally charged words to provoke guilt are forms of emotional disrespect. A wise man chooses his words with care. He understands that tone matters as much as content. Respecting verbal boundaries doesn't mean avoiding honesty, it means delivering truth with kindness and empathy. Emotional, physical, and mental respect all connect to one core principle: self-control. Men who can't respect a woman's boundaries are often the same men who can't manage their own impulses. They react instead of reflect, they dominate instead of discuss. But real power lies in restraint. When you can pause, think, and choose respect even when emotions are high, you show that you're in control of yourself. That control earns more respect than any display of aggression or dominance ever could. In every interaction, there's an invisible line that defines comfort and safety. Some men cross it unknowingly, others intentionally. The difference between the two lies in awareness. To respect a woman's boundaries, you must first pay attention. Notice how she responds, what she says, what she avoids saying. Communication is not just about speaking, it's about observing. Ask questions, listen to her needs, and clarify consent in every context. It's not about being overly cautious, it's about being considerate. Another part of respecting boundaries is respecting her decisions. If she says no, whether to a conversation, a relationship, or an invitation, accept it without argument or persuasion. No is not a challenge to overcome, it's a boundary to honor. Too many men interpret rejection as a personal attack, instead of a natural part of human interaction. When you accept her no with grace, you demonstrate strength and maturity. It shows that your respect for her autonomy is greater than your desire for validation. Boundaries also evolve with time and trust. What feels uncomfortable today might feel safe tomorrow, but that shift should happen naturally, not through pressure. Men who rush emotional or physical intimacy often end up breaking trust instead of building it. Patience is one of the purest forms of respect. It shows that you value her comfort more than instant gratification. The men who earn deep emotional connection are not the ones who push, they are the ones who wait, who listen, and who show consistency over time. When men disrespect boundaries, the consequences extend far beyond one conversation or relationship. They erode a woman's sense of safety, which affects how she interacts with men in general. Every time a man ignores a woman's boundaries, he contributes to a larger culture of mistrust. Conversely, every man who honors them helps rebuild that trust, one respectful action at a time. Respect is contagious, it inspires others to do the same. Respecting boundaries also teaches men to respect themselves. A man who honors others' limits is a man who values his own. He knows who he is, what he stands for, and what kind of energy he allows into his life. Respecting her boundaries isn't about fear of rejection, it's about dignity. It's about knowing that real connection thrives in freedom, not control. When you make respect your foundation, you attract relationships grounded in equality, not dominance. Ultimately, understanding boundaries requires empathy, the ability to feel beyond your own perspective. When you can imagine how your actions might affect her, you naturally adjust. You stop thinking in terms of what you can get from her and start thinking about what you can give to create safety and trust. That shift transforms not only relationships but character. Respecting boundaries doesn't make you less of a man, it makes you more of one, because it proves you can lead with understanding instead of entitlement, and compassion instead of control. Promises are not just words, they are commitments that carry emotional weight. When a man makes a promise, he is not simply speaking a sentence, he is creating an expectation, building a sense of trust, and setting a standard for how dependable he truly is. Promises reveal character. They define how seriously a man values his word, and how much respect he has for the person he's speaking to. When you make promises you don't intend to keep, even small ones, you slowly chip away at trust. Each broken promise sends the same message, that your words cannot be trusted, that your intentions are shallow, and that you value convenience over integrity. And once trust is lost, it's nearly impossible to rebuild it to its original strength. When a man makes a promise to a woman, whether it's about something small like returning a call, or something big like building a future together, he is asking her to believe in him. That belief is not given automatically, it's earned through consistency. Every time you fulfill a promise, no matter how small, you prove reliability. But every time you break one, you plant seeds of doubt. She starts questioning your sincerity, wondering if your affection is real or just another fleeting emotion. Over time, this doubt creates emotional distance. People rarely lose trust in an instant. It happens slowly, with each careless word and each unkept commitment. The easiest promises to make are the hardest to keep because they require discipline and honesty. It's easy to say, "I'll always be there for you," or "You can count on me," especially in emotional moments when the words feel right. But the real test comes later, when keeping that promise is inconvenient, uncomfortable, or demands sacrifice. That's when your true intentions are revealed. A promise is not a tool to gain someone's affection or approval. It's a declaration of responsibility. Every man who understands that treats his word as sacred. The problem with making promises you don't intend to keep is that it creates false hope. When you tell a woman what she wants to hear just to please her, you may think you're being kind or avoiding conflict, but you're actually setting her up for disappointment. False promises may buy temporary comfort, but they always lead to long-term pain. They create an illusion that you care more than you actually do, and when reality breaks that illusion, it leaves emotional scars. A woman who has been messled learns to stop believing words, even when they're genuine later. Empty promises damage not only one relationship, but also her ability to trust others afterward. There's a difference between breaking a promise unintentionally and making one you never meant to honor. Life happens, plans change, circumstances shift, but intentional dishonesty is a choice. When you promise something you know you can or won't do, you're using deceit as a shortcut. It might get you admiration, affection, or cooperation temporarily, but it costs you integrity. Integrity is not measured by perfection, it's measured by honesty. It's better to admit you can't fulfill something than to pretend you will and fail deliberately. A man who can say, "I can't promise that right now," earns far more respect than one who promises everything and delivers nothing. Promises shape identity. A man's word should mean something, it should be his bond. In history, The most respected men were not the richest or the loudest, they were the ones who kept their word. Their reliability became their reputation. Today, in a world filled with exaggerated words and broken commitments, being someone who means what he says sets you apart. It shows discipline, respect, and authenticity. It communicates that you value truth more than impression, and that when you speak, people can rely on your words. In relationships, broken promises cut deeper because they involve emotions, not just logistics. When a man tells a woman he will call, visit, or support her, she takes that to heart. It's not about the act itself, it's about the consistency it represents. When you say you'll be there and you're not, it doesn't just create disappointment, it creates doubt about your feelings. It makes her wonder if your affection was ever genuine or just another promise made in the heat of the moment. The pain of disappointment is multiplied when it comes from someone you trusted. That's why a single broken promise can outweigh 10 fulfilled ones. Betrayal leaves a heavier imprint than reliability. The habit of making empty promises often comes from a desire to be liked. Many men overpromise because they fear rejection or disapproval. They think saying yes to everything makes them more appealing, but people can sense insincerity. Overpromising eventually exposes you, because time reveals everything words try to hide. The courage to say no when you can't commit is far more attractive than the weakness of saying yes just to please. Real confidence doesn't come from what you promise. It comes from what you actually do. Another layer to this is self-respect. When you constantly make promises you don't intend to keep, you stop respecting your own word. You start seeing your speech as cheap currency. Eventually, you begin lying not only to others but to yourself. You start overestimating your capacity, overcommitting, and underdelivering, and that pattern spills into every part of your life. You lose credibility in friendships, at work, and in relationships. The habit of making false promises becomes a mirror reflecting your inconsistency. The man who can't keep his promises to others often can't keep promises to himself either. Like staying disciplined, pursuing goals, or maintaining integrity when no one's watching. Keeping promises builds discipline because it forces you to think before you speak. You become more deliberate with your words, more careful with your commitments. You begin asking yourself, can I truly follow through on this? Am I saying this out of emotion or out of conviction? This awareness separates impulsive men from intentional ones. It makes your speech more meaningful, because people know that when you say something, you've already considered what it takes to make it real. That kind of man earns lasting respect. Sometimes men make promises to impress women, to sound romantic, confident, or ambitious. They say things like, I'll never hurt you, I'll always make you happy, or, we'll be together forever. But these are promises no one can fully control. They are emotional exaggerations born from the desire to sound perfect. No one can promise to never make mistakes or to guarantee someone else's happiness. The right thing to do is to speak with honesty, not fantasy. Say, I'll do my best to protect you from pain, instead of, I'll never hurt you. Promise effort, not perfection. That's what real men do. They make promises they can realistically keep, and then give their all to honor them. When a man breaks a promise intentionally, it damages the emotional balance in the relationship. The woman begins to carry more emotional weight. She adjusts her expectations, makes excuses, and tries to fill the gaps his inconsistency creates. Over time, she stops believing in his words altogether. Even when he tells the truth, she hesitates. This emotional exhaustion is one of the main reasons relationships fail. Trust doesn't collapse suddenly, it fades quietly. Every time a promise is broken and brushed aside as, not a big deal. Keeping promises also reflects how you handle responsibility. A responsible man doesn't overcommit. He doesn't make promises when he's unsure. He knows his limits and communicates them clearly. Responsibility means owning your words, even when it's uncomfortable. It's easy to make promises in the excitement of the moment, but real strength lies in standing by them when circumstances change. A man's reliability is tested when keeping his word is no longer convenient. Promises are not just about actions, they're about respect. When you keep your promises, you show that you value the person you made them to. You acknowledge their feelings, their time, and their trust. Breaking promises, on the other hand, shows disregard. It tells the other person that their emotions are secondary to your convenience. That's why broken promises sting so deeply. They make people feel unimportant. Respect is built through consistency, and promises are one of the clearest ways to show it. There's also an ethical dimension to promises. Every promise carries moral weight because it influences another person's decisions. When you tell someone you'll do something, they may plan or hope around your word. If you don't deliver, you disrupt their emotional or practical expectations. It's not just about failing to act, it's about misleading. Ethical men understand that words have power. They don't use them recklessly to manipulate emotions or situations. They measure their promises carefully, knowing each one creates an invisible contract of trust. Promises also reflect emotional maturity. Immature men make promises out of impulse, driven by emotion or excitement. Mature men make them out of reflection and understanding. They realize that every promise sets a standard they must live up to, and they are willing to bear that responsibility. Maturity means understanding that keeping promises may sometimes require sacrifice, time, effort, or personal comfort. But those sacrifices strengthen character. Every fulfilled promise becomes a proof of reliability, a reminder that you are a man of your word. Breaking promises doesn't only hurt others, it also hurts your self-image. Every time you go back on your word, you subconsciously lose respect for yourself. You begin to feel unreliable, which affects your confidence. You start doubting your ability to commit, to follow through, to lead. Keeping promises, however, reinforces your self-worth. It builds a quiet sense of pride, knowing that your integrity remains intact even when no one is watching. That kind of inner strength radiates outward. It becomes visible in how you walk, speak, and carry yourself. In the end, promises are a reflection of your principles. A man who guards his word, who speaks truth even when it's inconvenient, earns respect from everyone around him. His promises become valuable because they're rare and honest. He doesn't make them lightly, but when he does, he means every word. That's the kind of man people trust, the kind whose presence brings stability and assurance. His word becomes a promise in itself, and that's a legacy no amount of charm or wealth can replace.